right, good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody online. We're glad you're with us. So on Friday, we sent out our typical Friday email, and it included kind of a preparation for what we're planning to talk about today. In it was a link to a letter from our synodical president, Harrison, and then a letter from a lay person who was responding to that. I hope that y'all had a chance to kind of read through those. Just an opportunity for us to get prepared for what we're talking about and to see what people in leadership are saying within our synod. I will tell you right now, I didn't agree with everything in either one of them. So we want to give, and I'm sure that you guys felt the same way while you were reading it. So we want to give you guys some time to talk about it. And then we're going to spend some time in prayer as well. And then probably as we're finishing that up, Pastor Jeff will jump in so that he can finish up our time together. Let's go ahead and open in prayer. And then I'll set you off to chat at your tables. So, Almighty and everlasting God, we give you thanks for bringing us together today to hear your word and your worship proclaimed, and Lord, to be amongst fellow believers, to walk together in this community of faith that you've given us. We ask that you would bless our time together. Give us wisdom, understanding, patience, and love for one another as we continue to see what happens in the world, to feel the groanings of creation, to view the sin that's out there, and Lord, to go forward in it, to understand what you are calling us to be as we seek to follow your word, to follow your son's example, and to bring love and peace where we go. All these things we ask in your son's name. Amen. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and give you like 3 minutes there's a prompt. Do y'all have this sheet? Yep. Okay. There's a prompt here. The table discussion is your feelings, questions, and beliefs in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death. I just want to pause real quick here because I forgot to say it. I've heard some people say, why didn't we talk about anything last week? I've heard some people today say, why are we talking about this now? Where are we supposed to be in it? And I think that that's valid. We're all wrestling with what do we do as Christians in light of society today. And I think there's a reality that violence exists. And so we have to consider, what are we being called to do? We also know that here on the island, there was a shooting which resulted in a death. Earlier, at some point this week, there were threats against Hilton Head Christian Academy that caused them to be closed for a day. So these are all things that we're all kind of wrestling with. How do we do this well? So you can talk thoughts, feelings, questions in the wake of Charlie Kirk's death, but you can also talk about just how you're feeling right now in what we're seeing everywhere. What do we see in society, in our nation, internationally? So take some time and process together. If you have questions, I encourage you to write them down on the question sheets. I'll bring some around for us to just keep talking about. So go off and chat. right, I'm going to butt in. How many of you felt at least moderately uncomfortable at some point during that conversation? Nobody? Some people? I said, how many of you felt even just a little uncomfortable while having that conversation at your table? No? Everybody felt good? I am very glad to hear that you guys can trust each other and have some of these difficult conversations. I have received a couple questions. If there are any more, you can just hold it up in the air and I'll come around and collect it. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you 2 or 3 minutes just to pray silently. Pray for whatever you want. I encourage prayer for our nation, for our leaders, for our kids on college campuses or elementary school campuses. I heard somebody mention the Annunciation school shooting that happened a couple of weeks ago, which I had forgotten about. So take some time, be in prayer silently, and then I think at that point, Pastor Jeff will join us. So we'll get started on some additional teachings time. So, all right, be in prayer. Lord, we thank you for hearing our prayers, and we ask that you would continue to hear us as we seek to do your will. And as we seek to follow in your Son's footsteps, all of these petitions we bring before you, Lord, and ask that you would hear us and that you would bless us. All this we ask in your Son's name. Amen.
Well, welcome, especially those that have chosen to join us via live stream. We're looking forward to very soon having the ability for you to be able to send your questions and join with us in a more live way. But we sure appreciate you being a part of it. It's nice to see such a packed room today. I figured that was because you knew Grace was going to be here. And obviously, if you were at 8:30 service, my goodness, Pastor Andy just, boom, was that a blessing? Will you help me thank God for the gifts he is? And so there's all transparency here. When he said, some of you probably never even heard of Charlie Kirk before last week. Did you happen to see him staring right at me? I had never heard of him. In fact, I told Andy, I said, Andy, I talked with, I have friends, believe it or not, it's hard to believe, but I do, all over the country. And I talked to my friends who are school teachers, pastors, administrators, and not one of them had heard of Charlie Kirk. Not one of them. And I'll go even further. I happened to watch on Fox News Archbishop Timothy Dolan, and some of you know that I actually worked with him on a project back in Wisconsin. He was interviewed, and he said, I never heard of Charlie Kirk before this. So there are those of us. And I've been kind of scratching my head, how has this happened? You know, you look in the mirror and then I know, don't say it, that how has this happened that I don't know of who he is? But I have come to this conclusion because I remember, does anybody remember the era of Dan Rather, Walter Cronkite, Chet Huntley, David Brinkley, and Ed Murr? Sure, of course you do. Now I want you to hear this in love. I had my parents and my grandparents, that was like religion, watching that. And then, anybody ever heard of Ted Turner? And when Ted Turner started opening up the whole news, ways of receiving news, anybody remember that? My parents were like totally out of step, oblivious. They didn't care, didn't want to know, and yet I could tell they did not feel settled. I now know how my parents feel. And here's the difference. Andy told me a couple of names that probably Jessica knows, and maybe a couple other people here. I knew none of them. And he said, Jeff, these people have more people watching them and listening to them than any news station. There's some guy, he told me, that was the most Googled person in the world. I'm like, gee whiz. Who would that be? And it's a guy. So, you know, and so again, I want you to know I'm walking into today with a profound sense of dis-ease, sadness, longing for the Lord's return, concern for our country. And I have spent the week talking to young people, and I've spent the week talking with you all. I received six communications of people that were very disappointed in me personally from last week. And it's all right. If I've offended anybody on the way, we're trying to pastor here the best we can. And I want you to hear that in love. Just for the record, one of our members was in the Preston when the wife came in and Mercy killed her husband, and the whole staff is upset. So I was reeling from that, as well as shootings that were, Beaufort School had been already on lockdown or something. So I had I had all this stuff on my, and Andy said, we need to bring up Charlie Kirk. I said, no, we're not. So this is on me. And I said it because I said, first of all, what are you talking about? And I want you to hear that some of my buddies, Greg Kranz, God bless him, he's going to be at a memorial this afternoon, and how many of you are going to go to the memorial? And so, just so you know, Greg told me how he's going to approach it. It was not, when he was approached, it was a very different thing than it's turned out to be. But I just want you to know that we're going to walk through this together. There is no question that I won't at least acknowledge that I either don't know the answer to, or I'll do the best I can. So somebody looks to me like, so are these questions here? We would like to hear Andy speak to his experience at USCB on Thursday. Oh, that would be great. Yeah, can't do that. He's with the high school. We actually talked about Andy coming in and walking with this, but it's been fascinating to hear. Andy's been both not only at USCB, but he was over at Hilton Ed Christian Academy, and then Hilton Ed Christian Academy was closed down on Tuesday. So this is real life. This one I can't deal with, though, because he's not going to be here. He's with our young adults.
Another one for Andy, too.
Oh, okay. This one? Oh, okay. All right. Great. Did I not say I'm feeling like unsettled? And this is great. I should have said irrelevant, too. But are there any questions that anybody would want to bring forward that are not written down? Just put your hand up as a courtesy to those that, so we need to have somebody with a mic. Steve has been working with me, so we need to get a microphone and get it. Oh, here it is. I've always wanted to do this. Thanks. All right, go ahead, start right here. Go right here and work your way back while I eat a mushroom. Thank you, Laura, for the mushrooms.
Good morning, everybody. For your information, I believe most of
Who are you?
John Martin. This afternoon, there's going to be on Fox News.
You got to put your mic by your mouth.
This afternoon, Fox News will be doing the memorial service for Charlie.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did see that as well. Yep. It's going to be on TV. Other questions or comments? Who are you?
Good morning, Bob Swearer. I'll phrase it as a question instead of as a comment. Are you not surprised, are we not surprised, that if you called, say, 100 of friends who are Lutheran pastors throughout the United States, that so many of us in mainline church bodies, Lutheran, Episcopal, Presbyterian, would all have the same kind of response, who is Charlie? I think that in mainline denominations, that would be a standard response from so many folks. And my question is, what does that say about us as Christians if we don't know our fellow Christians who are almost like the Billy Grahams of today? Then the next question is, we don't even know the unchurched and what their needs are.
Good. This is good. There was a question in there. Amen. I agree with you. All right, moving on to the next. So let's go on. Over here, Mary's been waiting politely.
I'm getting there.
You're up, Mary.
Mary, why did you not bring it up last week?
That's a great question. I actually will tell you, it's real simple. I've been here for 5.5 years. Never once have I brought up. I don't bring up people by name. In fact, I've had actually other people say, they'll come to me and say, could we put so-and-so on the prayers? And I've said, have you asked their permission? Well, no, but we need to pray for them. No, I'm not doing that. Not by name, not publicly like that. Now, I only bring that up because, so I didn't, that's kind of my standard starting place. The other part of it was, there wasn't just one event last week. And I will tell you, I've talked to numerous young people who frankly are aghast that the country has lost sight of all the other tragedies. I guess in Denver, there was a shooting at a school 1 minute after the assassination, and that was lost in Evergreen. And so for me, the starting place is I'm very uncomfortable necessarily bringing up a name. I also am not going to be bringing up names that I don't know. And that's where Andy had to, not only is he a great guy and a very gifted communicator, he's actually fitting very nicely into a team. It's not easy. In fact, the district president came and met with Jess. He thinks you're a very nice person, by the way. The district, yeah, not that you care, but the district president, and I are very close friends. And what he said to me was, he said, I talked to Andy about how is the journey going, moving from being the lead pastor, the sole pastor, to being on a team. And I can tell you, it's not just a slam dunk, but he's doing a great job. Because if it had been up to Andy, he knew a lot more than I did. I wasn't going to bring something forward without having, because it was that morning, to be able to, so I needed to have a little more. And that's just a call I had to make. Ironically, Greg Kranz, go watch the service. He actually changed his whole sermon for the for Sunday morning last week. Who's Greg Kranz? Yeah, you know. Well, it wasn't that great of a sermon. Andy's was better. And you can tell Greg I said that. Yeah, oh, Greg Kranz is the retired pastor from St. Luke's at the Anglican Church on Pope Avenue. He has been here as one of the longest standing pastors on the island, some 30 plus years. Yeah. So other questions? Yeah. And not only questions, if you have comments, let's bring it up here. Here we go.
Where? Okay. See the hand in the back.
I don't know exactly what my question is, but I think for me, just the tremendous sadness around what happened was multifaceted, but also just coming from, Andy does very similar work as Charlie Kirk on a different scale. And so as Andy's wife, just kind of having a look behind the scenes at what it is like to go to college campuses, and now Andy's been different campuses around the country, and it's often extremely hostile to proclaim Christ, but also to open up discussion that isn't of a certain, roadmap that's the world. And so I think that's one aspect, that the reality of the people that are doing this, they almost expect probably martyrdom at some point. And that's just the reality of the climate. So when I think about it, I think about that aspect that, it's really incredible what this person did. And then outside of that, the thing that made it different for me was the fact that this was a very public murder in front of very impressionable youth, in front of thousands, but ultimately millions. And so I think for me, seeing the hostility that's come out after the fact, of attacking character or even questioning who was this person. Just trying to remember too that to pray, just pray, because that's really where we hold power, but also that these are real people.
Yeah.
The fact that it seems like a lot has been lost in the argumentation that this is someone's father and husband.
Yeah.
So I don't know what my question is, but just for me, like, I guess what to do with this sadness and just calling evil good makes me really upset.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think it was also a question of, like, what do we do when people that we love are even, this week I was very attacked by my younger brother, who immediately, when I posted, I just posted, please pray for this family.
Yeah.
And, Andy knows people that walked with Charlie Kirk in their boyhood. Like, Andy's friends with someone who was in Boy Scouts with Charlie Kirk. And so, to me, this was very close to home. And I just...
Justin, because I know the backstory, did you just share what happened with you personally when you put something out?
Oh, yeah.
So if you could just say it one more time, because I think it was glossed over, because I think this is really part of the dynamic of what's going on in the aftermath. So Jessica, you put something.
I just posted, pray for Charlie Kirk, pray for our nation. And I mean, I was totally accosted by my younger brother, to be honest. Paragraphs and paragraphs of aggressive language. So yeah, and I'm sorry to share so much. It's just, this has been very close to my heart because, like I said, the work Andy does, the reality of the situation, and I just ask for prayer for us too. And I know you guys pray for and love Andy, but continued, because the battle is close,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry to take so much time.
No, thank you so much. Don't we agree? Aren't we glad that Jess was willing to share her heart? And by the way, just so we're aware, I want to be careful and honor people's, but Andy was approached by others who work on the campus right here at USCB, Christians, and those people are afraid. And people are concerned. And people are wondering, is Pastor Jeff concerned? And so we have to be aware that this is like a hotbed of emotions all over for us to journey as a church, and especially appropriate given the amount of time. It's not just Andy. There are volunteers from our church that are right there with him out there on the campus. And I said to both of our children, one in New York and one in Milwaukee, you're as safe today as you were 2 weeks ago, because ultimately you're in the same place you were. You're in the palm of the Lord's hand. And the truth is, I've heard enough testimony. A grieving wife, absolutely. Haven't heard anything from the kids, but I am very confident, based upon what I've spent hours listening to Charlie Kirk since then, like Timothy Dolan. I know him a lot better now in his death than I did in his life. But Charlie Kirk knew he knew he could be killed, and he knew if he did die, he would be right in the Lord's arms. The Apostle Paul said, it's, what shall I wish? To be with the Lord or to be with you? It's far better for me to be with the Lord. But for your sake, I'll be with you. Now that's a position that you may or may not resonate with, but I can tell you it is based upon a person's true experience of the resurrected Jesus. And you can have the exact same position. What do I say? Am I to be here or am I to be with the Lord? It's better to be with the Lord, folks. But for you all, I'll hang around till God's timing is up. So someone here first, are you going to you just don't want to walk that far. Be patient.
I'll get there, I promise.
All right. Who are you?
I'm Carolyn. I have two grandsons in their mid-30s, And I didn't know it, but after this happened, their family told me that they followed Charlie, which I was surprised, but also pleased. And the other thing I want to say is I do Facebook because I have a lot of children, and they like to go on there and show me pictures. But when I went on there this Monday, almost all of Facebook had on it thousands of people in groups in different countries praising Jesus. And I think that had to be part of a response to his death. Mm-hmm. Because Australia, and I can't name them all because I forget them, but many, many countries had thousands of people out there just praising Jesus. It was so nice to see.
Yeah. Well, there is definitely, like Timothy Dolan, he called Charlie modern day Paul. Paul broke into the Gentile community. Charlie is broken into the young community. And that not only the young, but just profound. The church, as Bob politely said, the church hasn't done so well. And now there is a big resurgence. And it's not just the non-denoms. Andy will tell you that he had a young person come up to him that might show up to church today. He's been going to a holiness church, and he's wanting more. And so his friends told him he should go to the Catholic church, and Charlie said, how about if you come to our church? So again, this is all part of these opportunities we have to reach out in the lives of young people. Over here, who are you?
Sharon Smith. I just think that one of the things that Andy said in his sermon was that we are the human race. And I think what I see in our country is hatred just being shoved both ways. And I just think that, as Carolyn said, we really need to focus on the fact that God is going to use this, and he is using it, and really be rejoicing that Christianity, or Jesus, might be seen more than he was prior to this. And it is a horrible loss, but he is a martyr, and he actually was ready to die for Jesus. So that's what I think we need to focus on instead of politics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, over here, let's move around this way. Nancy, just you all know, because there's a couple that left us this morning, and they said, Pastor, we'll be back next year, but we'll be watching all year. I said, and I don't know their names. I said, Pastor Andy would love to get to know you, because we're working on our site, our digital campus, and these would be people that are a part of that, right, guys?
Every week when we're gone. Hi, I'm Nancy, and what I think was wonderful is at the end of his sermon today, when he mentioned forgiveness and how Charlie would be there with open arms if this man comes to Christ and asks for forgiveness. And boy, it's hard as a human being to not want to hate that man and damn him to hell. But it was very powerful.
Yeah, he talked to me about doing that. I thought it was great. Of course, he set it up perfectly. The people that Paul, think of Stephen, that Paul definitively, we know, partnered in Stephen's the first Christian martyr, and Stephen standing there with open arms to receive Paul. You know, it's hard for us. We just think of this life. I just want to remind you that the problems we have in this life, I heard this from one of these local pastors who's just a great guy, Michael Card. He's been here the longest. Michael Card's been here 38 years. He said, fellas, so according to the scriptures, how long is your life here? Are you ready? Look up here, everybody. This is how long your life is. So your life is this long in eternity. So the problem you're facing right now, fits in that little. And so that means that the problems are real. And by the way, they are real. I mean, just ask me. We all face trials and troubles. But this is how long life is. And eternity, the fulfillment of the promises of the Lord. There is help for us now, and there's guarantees for us forever. Yep, back over there. We should have Bibles. Looks like if you didn't take Bibles, someone stole them all. But you should have a Bible within reach. You want to jump into the scriptures. But yes, who are you?
I'm Jack Abernathy.
One of our great shepherds. It's always good to see our shepherds here. Thank you, Lord.
I wanted to bring some positivity. Yeah. Oh, close. I wanted to bring some positive out of that, out of this whole situation. That think about how many young lives that Charlie changed for the good. And there's, we focus on the one or two evil, but he changed so many lives. And I feel humiliated as a disciple that I haven't. When I heard about Charlie and I started checking things, what he was doing, I said, wow, I am no comparison. This guy he's a true disciple, and I need to start working hard.
Yeah. But every moment.
I'm going to add just to kind of what you were saying too, Jack, and this is Alan. But, the one thing that I'm also taking away from this is, and kind of, Jeff, you really drove home the point, is that, he's mentioning Cronkite and all these guys. Well, Jeff, that was back in the day there was 3 channels on TV, okay? So it was really easy. You just didn't matter. Now, so many different avenues, and a lot of the folks that never heard of Charlie Kirk is because they're not really into social media. And there's so many outlets now and so many influential people and places and things that as we start looking at this ministry expansion, just something we need to be aware of and understand. And fortunately, we do have Pastor Andy, who's
out in
shoulder deep in it already, to help us along.
Yeah. So we're on a time frame because of the reality of second service and our parking lot, etc. But what I'd like to do is take the scriptures that we have, and I picked these scriptures intentionally. Oh, thanks. And so we're not going to be able to read them all. I'd invite you I put the pages there. Many of us know the story of the first biblical account there in Genesis chapter 4. This is the account of Cain and Abel. So if you want to open there, I'm going to give you a summary of it, because what sometimes we forget and we miss out on is what drove Cain to kill his brother. And this is dealt with in the book of Hebrews as well. What drove was a deep hatred because he was struggling with his own relationship with God, and he saw his brother living out a different relationship with God, and he resented that God seemed to be playing favorites. And so instead of taking out his anger on God, what does he do? He kills his brother. Now, what's the parallel? See, at the end of the day, we are broken just like Cain, and like Abel, by the way. The truth be told, we take out our anger, which is probably deep-seated with God, and we vent it in our relationships with others. And research has shown over and over again what happened there is the anomaly. Most of the things that happen with people we know. More deaths come at the hands of family and friends than any stranger. We hurt the people we love. And this is real. The interesting is the response of God. Cain expected, when punished, he expected to be without hope. And yet God provided for Cain. He marked Cain. It's been called the mark of Cain. And I share that with you because I can guarantee you that this individual, if he is, again, he's innocent until proven guilty, but if he is guilty of this crime, he has God's mark, his grace. God's mercy is upon him just like it was upon Cain. And we as the church have a responsibility to love and pray for all people. So we talk about praying for Charlie Kirk's family, and that's good. Are you going to pray for his and him? And are you going to pray for those people who have positions different than you? I mean, I appreciated Jess's vulnerability. We all have loved ones that don't necessarily, they haven't got the memo that Father knows best. They're all working through stuff themselves. The second reading, if you go with me to 1 John chapter 3, this is one you're not going to be as familiar with. I know I wasn't. But I did know this letter, and I knew it because I've preached on chapter 4 many times. Beloved, let us love one another, for love comes from God, yada, yada, yada. But if you look at chapter 3, and we don't have time to go through it all, but again, if you look, he deals with the Cain situation here. So we should not be like Cain, who was the evil one and murdered his brother. Why did he murder? Because his own deeds were evil, his brothers were righteous. So do not be surprised, brothers and sisters, that the world hates you. And we start to get a perspective here, and I thought Andy did a great job of helping us to understand that this is the life of a Christian. I mean, they killed Jesus. What makes us think it should be any different than for us? And then he yet turns it and says, but if you hate your brother, you're a murderer. So again, the call here is not only to pray for, John is picking up on what Jesus said. Love your enemies. And I can tell you for sure, some of my pain that I'm going through personally is not only feeling really out of touch, but quite candidly, pretty helpless and sometimes hopeless in a country that seems to have lost common decency. And I can't remember, because I don't choose to remember, the guy who some loved one would have said, what do they call that? Road rage is not a good thing. But I don't remember that guy in me. But we all have our own demons, and we're called to love. We're called to love all people. So, again, Romans chapter 12, you know Romans 12, the beginning. I doubt you don't know the second part, though. If you look at Romans chapter 12, and I've got the page there for you, what was fascinating for me is, again, this picture, in 9 through 21, this, that can't be right, it can't be 21, there aren't, oh yeah, there it is. When it talks about the relationship we have with people has this added promise, and that is God does avenge. And if we step into that role of avenger, we're actually putting ourselves in the place of God. And we're telling God he doesn't have it right. Now, I'm looking over here at my buddy, the soldier, Jeff, who served, police officers. We have to understand, we're talking about our call as children of God within the right-hand kingdom. When the government, God gives authority to the government, and there are responsibilities that require this. But even there's a code of conduct. There's a code of conduct for the military, there's a code of conduct for the police force. And when you break that code of conduct, you're putting yourself above the code. So I thought Romans 12 was very helpful. James chapter 1, again, I would encourage you to go here because James chapter 1 does a really nice job of helping us see where, if you will, the gestational growth of sin and death. And it is remarkable. James pulls no punches. On your own, you can look these up. But basically, James says what his half-brother said. All sin begins here. Here. It all begins inside of us. And so we need to understand that we are, by nature, inclined toward this. If we're not fighting against it, it will then start taking our thoughts captive. And after it takes our thoughts captive, it will start to encourage us and invite us and, if you will, lead us to act on it. And then we act on it, and James says, then we act on it, and he uses the verb there that is continual, and guess what's happening? It's like the cancer is just now full-blown going to kill you. And that's the death. That's the growth of sin. We've got to start with what's inside of us. That's what Jesus called us to constantly. Max Lucado, I get this, this would be a great little video put on to me by Alan Meyer. You can talk to him. Max Lucado has spent the last 2 weeks on talking about protecting and guarding your thoughts. That God puts a soldier there, heard it through another one of my other devotionals I go to. God puts, there are avenues to help us to deal with what's going on inside of us. And we should not be naive. What's going on inside of us is always going to be corrupt. Luther is so bold to say, even when we say we're going to do a good deed, the inside of us screws it up because we kind of figure it out as a way to play something, to get something out of it. So that's the James passage. And then finally in 1 Peter chapter 4, again, if we had more time to dig into these, we've got to go because we have church. And I hope Andy comes down soon because he's preaching. But I will tell you that that 1 Peter 4 is so powerful because it is all about you want to be like Jesus, you want Jesus to be close to you. Guess what Peter reminds us? When you are suffering, you are like Jesus. You want Jesus close to you? Jesus is always close. And by the way, that is the biblical portrait from the Old Testament. Jesus is always closest to those who are suffering. And so when you are suffering, and it does not seem like there's anything good in this, you don't have to yell. You can just whisper his name. He is that close. He is with us in the midst of our suffering. And it's in the midst of that that we can take heart because our suffering is part of our walk with the Lord. Well, there will be plenty more opportunities for us to continue to talk together. We got to get out of here. Let's close with the family prayer. Thank you to those that joined us via live stream. we look forward to continued conversation. Lord, remember us in your kingdom and teach us to pray. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory,